to the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast.
Wow, we welcome back to the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast. This one right here is episode 101, our first one post triple digits, and fittingly, also our first podcast post Modern Warfare 2 launch. One of the most monumental moments in Call of Duty history. We just bared witness to. We had a front row seat to, as both having standalone games, which, 2 years ago you told us that. I don't know if I would believe it, but certainly dug into this multiplayer experience. We dug into the campaign. Finally, you did this past week. And so there is so much for all of us collectively to dig into and bring to the surface. But before we get into the specifics and go through this finely crafted agenda I have for us, I'm going to turn to you, the 10-inch Cowboy, who got his hands on his first ever, standalone multiplayer boy experience here. Welcome to the world of Call of Duty outside of Warzone, Cowboy. How was your week in the Warzone and collectively Modern Warfare 2?
To steal your words, wowee. It was a very interesting week. I was wondering if you were going to ask me how my week in the Warzone specifically was, because I didn't spend a lot of time in the Warzone, really. I think I played some duos, Rebirth Island with friend of the pod Sparks, for about an hour until we wanted to jump off a cliff. And then, yes, I did the campaign, which was probably the highlight of the week because the multiplayer also made me look for that cliff. It's so frustrating. I don't know if it's because I'm just not a gamer and I don't understand how to play it very well, but it is so frustrating. I don't know if you share that same feeling, but the multiplayer has been so frustrating. I get killed so quickly. I don't know if I don't have the best weapons yet, or if just my aiming is totally off. I got to work on my sensitivities. I feel like every time I aim up to shoot someone, I'm like, I just am missing so far. I feel like I do when I first started playing Warzone, when I would just it was like a spastic, shockingly, I don't know what to do shot, where I would just shoot near them, but I wouldn't be dialed in at all. So that's where I'm at. So kind of a weird week, I guess, which we can dive into all of it. But I guess I'll flip it to you. How was your week in the new Modern Warfare standalone game?
Well, let's just stop right there. First off, I have a strong recommendation, and that is for you to go into your settings on Warzone. And there's a screenshot feature in PlayStation, or you can use your phone. Take screenshots of your controller settings, specifically your sensitivities. And then when you hop onto Modern Warfare, you can get up to speed, because that, I would imagine, definitely has to be fucking things up if you don't got, your configurations right and your gyroscope, and you're going to be all over the place.
It's a good point. That's a really good thought, and probably a tip that, you're sharing with a lot of listeners.
Yeah, so I kind of rough guesstimated mine. I do remember 8 was my stick sensitivity. I've been pretty happy, but to go back to the frustration, and chronologically speaking, this game launched on a Thursday night at 9 p.m. I think it was when the West Coast could get our hands on it. And so I hopped on right at 9, literally got into it the first moment I could. And that first session was certainly frustrating. In fact, I have to admit here, my first ever Modern Warfare 2 session ended with me rage quitting. And it was because I was on that new map that's the border crossing. It's a controversial map, but I think I suffered deaths from 5 straight kill streaks, and I just had enough, and it was late, and I'm a dad now, so I value my sleep. So I was just fuck this. But then night and day experience getting on the next day, leveling up my guns, making some adjustments to my builds, to where this story ends on a positive note for me, actually. And I'm kind of itching to get back into the Modern Warfare 2. So that's where I'm at.
That's great. What level are you at right now? What's your like level? I think I'm level like 14.
I think I'm 21 or 22, and I believe 23 is where you unlock the new Kastov, whatever 562, the AK-47 equivalent, which we'll get into later. But I'm up there. Another thing is, I guess let's backtrack here because we want to tease out the main content, but let's go back to the campaign, which is where we left off last week. I had dug in to the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 campaign, was loving it. I kind of got you hyped for it. Since last week, I ended up completing it, and it gives you a pretty good M4 blueprint, I came to discover. But you have to make a few adjustments on that to make it more effective. So I think that brings us to you, where you didn't complete campaign, but do we want to start by you sharing about your campaign experience, which I think seemed positive?
Yes. So we actually, if you haven't checked it out or you want to check it out or you don't know that we have a YouTube channel, well, we do. And yes, I streamed the campaign. The first, I think, 6, was it? I did
5 or 6 missions.
5 or 6 missions. Did that last Tuesday. So check that out if you haven't already. That was the first time I really ever played the game that is like like a solo. You're like playing the video game through, like you're the hero going through the journey. That was the first time I'd ever done that, and it was fun. I mean, it's a little ridiculous, the cinematics, and I think that the dialogue could be rewritten by, or like maybe edited by maybe a more professional like screenwriter, but it is beautiful. It is visually stunning. It is a fun way to see all the different like ways and ways. I mean, I didn't even finish the campaign, but at least I mean, from what I saw, it shows you how to do a whole bunch of variety of shit. That was really fun. No, it was really enjoyable to play it. It was really nice having somebody yourself there also like walking me through, because there was, if I was by myself, it might have been a lot longer, slower, dumber of a process. So I had a good time with that. I enjoy the campaign a lot more than I did the multiplayer. I'll just throw that out there.
Well, yeah, the skill of the AI, a bit more easy to challenge.
A little more forgiving. Yeah,
forgiving. There we go. Than the old multiplayer. But that said, yeah, I had a blast. Even not playing, I had a ton of fun watching you play. Seeing the world through a child's eyes, so to speak, as they experience this campaign for the first time. Pretty hilarious that right out of the gate, that opening mission with the rocket. It was like we built up to some incredible suspense there, and then sure enough, you nosedive into the ground. Then I think we had 3 more attempts to finally get through like the opening part of the campaign, which I feel like really set the stage and was on brand for us as amateurs. So I quite enjoyed that.
It was tough. It was tough hitting that mark. I think I had a reflection on my monitor that I was playing on, so I thought there was a different mark than so that's why I kept aiming low. I thought I saw, but that's nor here nor there. I nailed it eventually.
Yeah, and as time went on, like you picked up some snipers, you were sniping, hitting headshots. You're very, I would say, kind of a cautious player. Like your approach to the campaign seems similar to like a Warzone multiplayer. It was like conserving ammo, peeking out, fire shot here. Whereas like with me, I don't give a fuck. I'm not just like, fuck these guys throwing nades, doing everything crazy. But yeah, you got through, I would say, the first half of the campaign. In my take from doing it all, I feel like the middle was the real sweet spot. Those middle few missions were a ton of fun. It kind of tapered off. There's a really cool like prison break one. But then things got a little clunky on the very final mission. The way like you had to complete stuff, it seemed a little weird. It was creative, but it was a little weird. I don't know if you're going to end up completing this. But as I said, you do get that blueprint from it and some other stuff, some calling cards, some double XP tokens. But all in all, I think definitely a successful campaign. I had fun playing it. I hope you did as well.
I did. I had fun playing it. I don't know if I'm going to finish it, to be honest, because I'm trying to grind in multiplayer to get my fucking guns and levels and all that shit up, so I'm ready to hit Warzone hard.
I mean, that's fair enough, and I respect that. And that brings us to, speaking of Warzone 1, you alluded to it. You got some games in this week. I did as well, and I don't know if you were just throwing shit out there last week about like, let's get a final win and then be done. But that was really my approach this week is I'd pretty much finished the campaign. And then it was only a few days until multiplayer was live. So I was like, all right, this is going to be my day to play some Warzone to basically the final run. I don't know what you fucking call that, like the farewell tour, dude, for Elvis. And so I was in a duos configuration, which I think you were running as well, getting destroyed, saying to my partner, wow, maybe I won't end up being able to get this final win after all. But then friend of the pod, Smeeden, came on, gave us a trio, made the difference.
Wait a second. You got the win, and you did this without me?
I mean, you weren't fucking on, dude. Don't act like I wasn't inviting you, bro.
I thought we were going to do this together.
Well, win now, man. Where have you been, man?
I mean, I played with Sparks, and he was like, let's get you a final dub. And I was like, no, we got to do it with Tron. And that's why, wow, we have to do it. We have to I can't believe you were going to do that. We fucking hosted this podcast together for 101 episodes, and you're not going to fucking play the last game of Warzone with me? Can you believe this, listeners? Shame him on Twitter. Shame him.
I just don't have that much desire.
Shame
put
him.
Any sort of time towards Warzone, but I suppose we can make it happen. But again, like, who are the psychopaths playing that now? I don't know. Might be worse than it was last week. But yeah, I got to win. I was close to deleting it.
What if it's sweaty or less sweaty now?
Probably sweatier because these people are holding on. A lot of people don't like the new one because you can't do things that you could do. Like you can't bunny hop, slide cancel, fucking jack yourself with a stim and slip slide around, and the visual recoil is way higher. A lot of this stuff we'll get into. But yeah, so I would guess it's probably all-time sweat on Warzone 1, but I guess we can try it. But if we hit a wall, like, this ain't some fucking bucket list thing I gotta do. Like, I'm content deleting that game at this point even.
I mean, maybe this week, if we have time, we'll throw up the stream on the old YouTube channel, and it'll just be kind of like us in search of getting our last win on Warzone, and then we fucking get the win and we turn off the stream, and that's that.
Then delete the game, free up that 100 gigs, because right now, yeah, I think my whole system's taken up by Call of Duty of some sort. But that said, I had a final kind of question here for you, which maybe we can save since it wasn't our last game. But I'm curious, like, to reminisce, what were some of your most memorable wins or games or things that happened in this era of Warzone 1? Like your quad feed with your Strela, that's got to be up there.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the best. That was one of the best moments. There was a moment a long time ago when I first started playing. It was one of my first games, and it was on Verdansk. And I killed somebody. I beat them down, basically. I was getting chased, and I ran around this car, and then I ended up I meleeed them down. Or no, I had a gun, and I ended up switching to my fists, and I ended up just punching this guy dead. And then I think I ran over his teammate, or I killed his teammate who was also sitting in the car. And it was just such a legendary moment. That was probably the best moment I ever had. And it was right off the bat, too.
Yeah, that fist kill. I don't know about the other parts in that story, but the fist kill is on our YouTube. It was a legendary moment. It's certainly a highlight for me. I was there to witness it.
What about you? Do you have like a moment that you'll never forget?
No, I mean, our PR round on my PR when I got on Fortune's Keep recently, that was fun. I just felt dialed in. I felt like a sweat lord. It was like I couldn't, I was winning. You win in everything, and it feels fucking good. But on the flip side for us, like I remember, I think it was a quad game on Rebirth. We were the last two left, parachuted in late to like bio, only had ground loot weapons. And we worked together. I ended up like killing a guy on the roof and then I downed a guy on the roof of Decon, flew there, killed him, and then his teammate downed me. And basically when he went to finish me off, it was like there was a moment in time where it had to happen. And somehow you had picked up like a ground loot sniper and hit this snipe into bio to fucking kill this guy, wipe the team, and save me.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I do remember that.
I think our patron listeners might have access to it as a win of the week, but we ended up, going on to win that. It was just a badass, like, teamwork moment. And then I would say our first ever duos victory on Verdansk, which is also on our fucking YouTube. So if you want, like, a trip down memory lane, man, woo.
We
getting emotional.
literally have hundreds of videos on YouTube now. It's crazy.
So that was a fun time because I was dead fast. Like me and Cowboy, we got this podcast now. We got to get a duos win. We worked hard for it. We got it. That was the big boy map, so that meant a lot. But yeah, I'm ready to move on. I'm definitely like, I'm not going to be looking in my fucking rear view mirror when I drive out of this house. It's like I've wrung every last, ounce of joy out of this. But you're gone. I'm moving on. I got my shit in my car. I packed it up. There's no reason for me to come back. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I know. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess. So how long has it actually been? Has it, by the time this comes out, the Warzone 2 comes out, Warzone 1 will have been out for like over 2.5 years, right? It's been a long time.
March 2020, I believe, was when this thing called Warzone went live, and I think it was March 13th, and it was December around then, I think. Maybe I'm conflating the dates, but December of 2020, I believe, is when we went live with this thing called the Warzone Amateur Hour. So yeah, quite an era. We were along from the first Black Ops integration, that season 1, every season thereafter, we followed along, which vast majority of the time. So it's the end of an era, but that kind of brings us to our next topic, which it sounds like maybe is a little conflicting, but I feel like the biggest takeaway of this whole Modern Warfare launch and all this is it's made me hyped for the new Warzone. Because I'm curious, like, I know you've been frustrated with how games have running, but what are your thoughts on like the feel of the game in this new era of Call of Duty, just in terms of how it plays?
Before we get into that question, and while we were talking about dates, before we jump to the next topic, is it too early to ask about Warzone 3?
Yes.
Okay. So probably another 2.5 years until we're at that. I'm just curious because, if we don't like this new version, it's going to be a while, I guess.
Yes, it will.
It's going to be a couple of long podcasts until we get a new one. So sorry, what did you ask? I totally forgot.
Well, you shared some frustrations about how you're not having success, getting fucking slapped around. But I'm saying, like, that aside, looking at how this game feels, how this game plays, this is, as we've said over and over, like, this is the fucking foundation. This is the sandbox we're going to get to play in, that Warzone 2 is going to be built within. How do you feel about it all?
To be honest, a little underwhelmed with the movement and stuff. Maybe it's just because I'm still getting used to it, but it feels a lot more rigid, a lot stiffer. I'm not dialed in yet, so it's hard for me to feel good about it. I'm having a hard time making the transition. It takes people like me and of my skill set a lot longer to get to where we need to be, and I am not there yet. So I think it's a little premature for me to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, because frankly, it's going to take me some time to understand how to do it, and it's weird that I know that you're anti slide canceling and bunny hopping. I get that. But I've gotten so used to moving that way, it feels a little clunky to me, the movement. It doesn't feel as fluid, and I'm kind of having a hard time adjusting to that personally. I'm not saying I won't get used to it and love it, but it's been a weird transition for me. I feel like kind of like a fool right now. What about you?
I mean, I think that's fair. It's interesting you said underwhelming. I don't know. I don't really want to speak to that because I think that's personal.
Okay. Let me say underwhelming. Maybe let me unpack that a little bit. One, I'm having a hard time with the UI. Finding the weapons, attachments, the gunsmith thing, it's not smooth. It doesn't feel fluid, and I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to do things. I don't know when I'm getting new weapons. I don't know when my attachments are unlocked. I'm still constantly trying to figure out what the fuck is going on within this, the user interface. So underwhelming in that, it's not blowing my mind. Damn, this game is incredible. Look at all the thought they've put into this. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. And I don't really have anything against the levels or anything, but I'm kind of where the fuck is all the shit, you know?
Well, that I 100% am with you there. And before we get into that, which I think that's going to be a perfect kind of intro into specific thoughts and first impressions of Modern Warfare 2, but to go back to your question, I felt like, and I mean, again, we've had our feet wet with the beta, but like the question I really had going into all this is like, or is this going to be an evolution of kind of existing Call of Duty and Warzone, or is this going to be a revolution? And I think it's clearly evident this is a revolution. This is a whole different ball game, a whole different style of game. And for me personally, I like love 90% of the changes they've made gameplay. I love this new direction. I know what you mean by it's more rigid or like confining, or your movement just doesn't feel like it did. But that said, I do feel like compared to the beta, it's smoother than the beta. And I don't know what exactly they've changed, but the movement I feel like is smoother in terms of the beta. Obviously, it's anywhere near fucking Warzone. You play Warzone, you're not on boots on the ground. You're fucking ice skates in the rink, especially if you know what you're doing. So that's kind of a controversial topic, but that said, that was my feedback of like, wow, this is a whole different game. You're gonna have to, as you're experiencing, you're gonna have to relearn shit. You're gonna have to change your fucking approach to the ball game.
100%. And also another, I don't know if we want to talk about this separately. The game fucking crashes all the time, which is also kind of part of the frustration that I feel is clunky, and I'm having a hard time getting in the groove. You know, like it's fucking I literally crashed like 6 games in a row for like in like a duo or trio that I was in. It was unbelievable how fucked it was.
Yeah, I think that's how we should start this, because you know we're objective here. We're not going to blow just smoke. It's the best thing ever. But I think let's start with that. Let's start with what the misses, what we don't like, what they screwed up. Yes, very top of the list. My God, I've never experienced. I mean, I've been on my fair share of Call of Duty launches. Maybe, again, not as hyped as this one, but certainly hyped. And never experienced the network and connectivity issues I've never experienced with any fucking game, period. It was insane. And especially coming from the beta where like, maybe my game crashed twice during the beta, but yes, there was clear, if you played the game with the party, you know this. It's literally, I think, affected every person. Anytime you partied up, that first day, it was massively buggy. It didn't matter what you were on, PlayStation, PC, Xbox. You were going to fucking crash, or your buddy was going to get booted. And the nature of the comm system is like there was no audio cue that they left. So they just stopped talking. You'd have to like check your phones, finally get into a game, be like, yes. And then you'd see, oh, your fucking 4th teammate lost. So now you got to back out. So many minutes spent, you know, like everyone, all you want to do is get into that and grind. And that was a huge misstep for sure.
100%. It was pretty bullshitty. I mean, it was, I don't know what else to say. I feel like that was the talk of the town. If you played it, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, we saw obviously the content creators that I feel bad for them. They did issue a patch though on the second day, which was, I believe, a Saturday, which they claim had fixed some of those issues. My bulk of my playing was during the week, the Thursday, Friday. So I can't speak to that. Did you play a decent amount since that patch? Did it seem better since then or no?
I think it did seem a little bit better. I played before and after the patch. Before the patch, it was comical. After the patch, I think it happened once or twice, and we were kind of on a high alert that it was going to happen a lot, but we kept playing multiple games, game after game, and it didn't crash. So it sounds like the patch made a difference.
Yeah, and my God, thank you to the Call of Duty gods if it does. But that said, the next up, which you touched on as well, which to me is a huge miss, is I honestly don't want to be this hyperbolic, but it feels like you couldn't design a worse, more complicated UI if you literally fucking tried to. Like just the friends list system. I don't know whose decision was to make a single name cover like 11% of your screen. It displays like 5 of your friends. And if I'm trying to find T in the 10-inch Cowboy, it's like insane I don't know how.
Are you saying like the box is small and then you see like 3 or 4 names and you have to scroll? It's like, why wouldn't you just double? It's not like that box takes up half the screen. It's like, it makes no sense, dude. It's unbelievably poor design. It's actually, now that you mentioned that specifically, you're right. It's such trash.
I mean, and it's like, literally the name indicates what it is. It's your friends list. It should be a fucking list. Like, you don't go on Microsoft Office and like design something for 20 people listed where like huge text and images and I can see their whole fucking calling card. No, just tell me who the fuck is online. Let me select them, invite them to my party.
Yeah, I mean, and then on top of that, aside from like getting to your weapons, the way that you find the gunsmith, and then there was also, they were having some glitches on the actual attachments once you were in the attachment mode. So it would literally, like, where it would say you could choose your barrel class, there was like multiple text things overlaid on top of each other, so I couldn't fucking tell what was going on there. They fixed that, I think, with the patch update, but that was obviously, I think it was on Friday I was having those issues. So yeah, I mean, there's some kinks, some big kinks. Well, these aren't kinks. This is like these are decisions. These were decisions they made.
It's frustrating too, because they could fix this and refine this. But I feel like they're so stubborn at this point, they probably won't. But yeah, the UI as a whole, incredibly overly cumbersome. I do kind of like the way you build like the loadout when you're into the actual class, like the way they lay out the guns and the gunsmith's just like a tab above that. I'm fine with that. The perk package system, I've wrapped my head around that. I understand it now. But that's the second thing you touched on, is like knowing where you're headed and where you want to go. Okay, I got this gun. Well, let's not even back that up. I got a gun I want to unlock. What do I need to do? It does not make it easy. It is, I think, easy to miss, but for the most part, you kind of got to look in the upper left usually when you highlight over something you don't have it, and it'll usually tell you what you need there, but sometimes it's not that simple.
Yeah. It's a pain in the ass, man. It's giving me anxiety just thinking about scrolling around that fucking menu.
Well, once you get the hang of it, you get to understand it a bit, and there's a button I'll tell you next time we're up where, in terms of weapon progression, like, how do I want to unlock this Hurricane? It's actually kind of crazy because you have to play with the M4, then you have to unlock the FTAC Recon, and then you have to switch to using the FTAC Recon, level that to a certain threshold, and that is how you get the Hurricane. So that's kind of, when they introduced and talked about this new, weapon system and families with branches and sharing attachments, I don't think we all understood this part, that like, again, this is probably controversial, but they're really forcing you, is the word for it, forcing you to play with a shitload of different guns to unlock maybe not even stuff for that necessarily gun itself, that's a complete diversion from anything I feel like they've done before in Call of Duty.
Okay, I'm not sure I actually follow. Can you explain that one more time? Like, pretend that I'm a child. What are you saying?
So, okay, in terms of unlocking guns,
yes,
it's not as simple as, okay, just keep leveling up your character.
Yeah.
And you're going to unlock the cast-off. Like, some of the guns are like that. Like the cast-off, the main core, I think, family of guns are kind of like that. You hit a certain level, they get
23, you get the AK, yeah.
But specifically within those, like, let's look at the M4 as the base gun you start with. Let's say you want to play with the Hurricane, which I don't know if you use that during the beta. It's a pretty fun... Yeah. So you would think, maybe I just have to level up my M4 to get that because like the receiver or whatever is on that. No, you have to use the M4 to unlock the FTAC Recon, which is a totally separate, it's a single fire gun. And then you have to level up the FTAC Recon to get the Hurricane.
That makes no fucking sense at all. Can you draw any logic for that decision, or is it just fucking mindless?
Well, I guess logically they want to say, I don't know, stuff with like the operators or the receivers and the families. But really, I think it boils down to the game. People want folks, if you want to level shit up and access stuff, you got to branch out. You can't just use one gun. You got to use like kind of all of the guns in existence in a way.
So they're trying to like make you a well-rounded player to get to what you want.
Yes, but so that's the first part of it is unlocking guns, but then let's look at attachments, and this is where there's really never anything like this done before. So when you're building out your M4, I don't know if you've noticed, let's say there's a certain barrel, or no, it's a grip, rear grip, the one that they recommend. If you go down and highlight that and see what the unlock challenge is, it has nothing to do with using the M4. It's like you have to get a totally completely separate gun to like level 16, like the AK-74U or something like that. So essentially, as I said, if you want to build a meta build for a gun, 90% of the time, you're going to have to use like 5 or 6 other guns to unlock the various attachments.
That sounds like, dude, I couldn't even wrap my mind around, like, how does, we've talked about this before, but the casual player, the casual player base, people that just want to hop in and get a little Warzone in. This is completely excluding them from fully realizing like the weapon systems in this new game, right? This seems like it's fucking for the sweats and the people that listen to this podcast, which salute to all of you, but right? Like, how is this inclusive of the casual player? This seems like it's fucking even more divisive.
It's divisive, and I'm torn on this because on one hand, I do like that they incentivize using other guns and not being able to just find one thing and stick with it until it gets stale. Like if you want to make your, gun dope, I like that you kind of got to bounce around. But I think they took it a bit too far in terms of extremes, in terms of what you're required to do. But that's where I'm at. So I think in terms of how this affects the amateurs is I think people are just going to be more like, it's going to be more time dedicating to leveling up one gun. But this is also exponentially helps you because as you unlock more attachments, those attachments aren't just for one gun. So like, let's say you get that rear grip for the M4, you're going to be able to throw that rear grip on a number of other weapons. So it is mitigated to a degree, but it really is incentivizing playing the shit out of the game, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I share the hint of optimism that you have. I think that this is over. I don't think we need complicated shit for weapons. Like, I'm having a hard time right now, even in the multiplayer, competing with other people because I do feel, one, I'm a terrible player, but above that, I think it's that I don't have the right weapons also. Like, I don't have the AK. I'm not using I just don't have good weapons. And it's going to take me time to get those weapons. And now I'm at a place where like, I don't even understand, even if I put in the time, how to get the weapons. And I feel like this is just going to confuse people like me.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely causing some cognitive dissonance and some pushback. So maybe they'll take a look, re-simplify things, but certainly they want people to grind. And again, this game has to last 2 years. So they don't want someone unlocking meta builds for every, main AR overnight. Like, this is something you got to put the time in. But on the flip side, again, it starts to build up exponentially. The more you unlock for one gun, the more that unlocks for other guns. You also are going to get your hands on different guns and see what you like. Like, I never would have used ever a single fire gun in multiplayer, but this forced me to, and I kind of like that FTAC recon because I'm trying to unlock that Hurricane. Mm-hmm. And so again, like there's the initial reactions like, no, give me simple, no. But as you start to do it, I feel like it's more fun, but that's just me. And you're having a lot of trouble out of the gate. So I empathize and sympathize with you.
Thank you. I appreciate the sentiment.
But, that brings us, we've talked about unlocking attachments. That's out for debate. But in terms of feedback, how many guns did you get your hands on? And what are your thoughts? Any favorites sticking out?
So, honestly, I don't think I got my hands on that many because there's not like a lot of guns to start with, right? I mean, there's obviously the M4, which is what I started with and realized the recoil's really rough with it. And I was like literally painting bullets around people like out of a straight cartoon. Like, I couldn't hit anybody. So then I was like, all right, maybe I need to use like a more short range weapon. I don't even remember what the name of the weapon was, but in the SMG category, it's the first one that's unlocked. It kind of looks like an MP7. Yes. So I started rolling with that. And I liked that because you have a lot of short range skirmishes, and the TTK is insanely low in the multiplayer. Like if you hit a couple of shots, it's over. I am getting fucking fried in the multiplayer, like before I can even blink. So I wanted a shorter range weapon for the so I started using that. It's called the VEL, VEL.
I think so.
Yeah, it's something like that. So using the VEL, and then after a while, I was like, I kind of want to snipe. I like sniping. I got to get these snipers in. So then I started using whatever the stock first sniper was. Or maybe it's this, they give you 2 snipers to start. And I was using the one on the right, whatever that one was. And so I was I also noticed too in the multiplayer, the more I moved around, the quicker and more often I would get slaughtered. So I ended up like trying to be more of like a campy piece of shit and like copying the rats and the sweats that I was seeing kill me every 10 seconds. So I started started camping and like basically sniping and like kind of playing that game more. And then I started getting to a point where I was getting killed by what I thought was a shotgun, but it was one of the marksman rifles. So what I ended up doing is I ended up building a loadout that had this. It's like the SPR. Yes, exactly. So I fucking loaded that bad boy up in one of my loadouts. And that gun is super fascinating because you can hip fire it and destroy people up close like a shotgun, but also it has the long range shot like a sniper, even though it doesn't necessarily have a scope when you first get it. So I've been playing with that. I think that's my new favorite weapon just because it's kind of a funky, diverse, short range, long range situation. But yeah, so that's what I've been using.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you tried different things. But on the flip side, at some point you do kind of gotta pick what you want, and because you saw when you have the base guns, I posted in our Discord. I was like, hey, what's everyone running? And I was like, because the M4 feels like shit, and then everyone replied that they were running the M4. It was pretty comical. And so I went back, I looked up some builds. I literally made like 2 attachment tweaks to my M4, and it was night and day different. And I was winning gunfights I had been losing. My recoil was better. So the attachment or 2 can make a difference. But it's a grind, man. We kind of knew that going into it. But this is it's for grinding, and which kind of makes me think like, well, what if we hadn't gotten... What if you're looking at this whole thing right now as a player who's only going to play Warzone 2.0? It's got to be intimidating, like not having this ability to level up guns, because I know it's got to be exponentially faster to level up guns in this multiplayer than it's going to be in the new Warzone. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, 100%. So what weapons? I want to hear about your weapons.
So yeah, I started, I think 90% of players doing this M4. I had a pretty good build for it from the campaign. I forget what it's called. It's like they say it's Ghosts or one of these whoever the fuck, one of these characters, his favorite gun. I had to make a tweak to the muzzle. I went to like one of the very first muzzles you unlock. It was recommended. I think Charlie Intel had posted it. It's the Echo Line GSX suppressor is what I switched to. Made a ton of difference. I also unlocked the high tower barrel, the 45 round mag, but I think the Phantom grip I'm chasing, that's going to require a gun I haven't even unlocked yet. I'm going to have to use. And then I think the Demo Pro Fade Stock or whatever, another gun I'm going to have to use. So the M4, I'm kind of like, it's meted out for where I'm at. So then I started fucking around with the TAC, the TAQ, which I guess is the Scar. That one feels really nice. I feel like that may be the move. I've seen a ton of streamers and a ton of good players using the TAC. I recommend it highly. The base model of that definitely feels superior to like the stock M4, just for someone like you, Cowboy.
Okay. And so what was your favorite then? Is that what you're saying? You're now stuck with that for now?
No, my friend. And then I played with the Hurricane a bit because there was a preset loadout for that. But thank the Lord, got my hands on a Kazdov 546 or whatever the fuck the number is, the AK-47 equivalent. And it feels so good that's where I'm headed. That's definitely what I want to be using. That's what I'm going to be fucking grinding till I get that fucker meted out.
Is it because it's good or just because you have this long-standing love affair with the AK-47?
Well, it's one.
Be honest.
It's one of two. Like certain, like you watch the fucking Ninja Turtles. One of the Ninja Turtles uses a fucking sword. One uses that weird little knife thing. One uses a fucking wooden stick. Like Are one of those weapons inherently better than the other? I don't know, but they excel with that.
Yes, the sword versus a wooden stick.
Well, the wooden stick, let's get out of there. But like the other things they got in there, nunchucks and the spear things. The spear things are, in the hands of a right soldier.
Those spear things, they have a name.
Size. That's what they are. Size.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't know the name.
Anyways,
I'm glad you did.
The metaphor is just here to illustrate that certain people, like you excel with a sniper. You put that same gun in the hands of someone shitty and they suck with it. Does it mean that gun sucks or no? So
it means
I
they
excel
suck.
with the AK. The rate of fire, it's always traditionally been a gun that has a slower rate of fire in Call of Duty, but it's more lethal. And the recoil pattern, I don't know. I just kind of have it tuned in. I love the fucking gun. And to answer your second question, is it good? It fucking rips. Like, if you play with Pole again, pick one off his body. 2 or 3 shots, people are done. The reload is fast. It feels good. It's fucking dope.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to pick one up yet, but I will soon, I'm sure. And hopefully it satisfies my desires. But
yeah, the TAC's up there. Yeah. I'm curious about the TAC too.
And is that a short range weapon?
No, it's an AR.
Okay, it's an AR.
Haven't experienced I've used an SMG or 2 in the campaign. Haven't touched those at all for the sake of multiplayer. I'm sure I'll get around to it. But that brings us around to a quick discovery immediately getting into this. I thought the shit we did in the beta was going to carry over. I had unlocked the fucking MP5. I had leveled up my guy, started building my M4. We get into this. We're back to level 1 plebs. Couldn't even make loadouts. I know I was disappointed, and I think you were as well about that.
Well, before we move to that, I just want to point out that I was just like, I wonder if Warzone loadout has one of our trusty sites for figuring out what are the metas and like what should we be using. They have a MW2Loadout.com, which is the same guy, but it's modern warfare loadout.com, and they have the top guns and all this shit, and boom, your AK is right at the top there.
Yeah, I see it here. It's Kastov 762.
Yep.
I don't know if those are necessarily I don't think he's done, his numbers, I believe, rely on other people, so I don't know if there's enough info out there. You can see he just has featured, whereas if you go to Warzone, he'll have them ranked as like absolute meta or like viable. Okay. So this is more, I think, ones he's dove into. He knows these are good builds for these guns. But yeah, I feel like the weapon diversity, you're seeing people have success playing a ton of different stuff. The shotguns, obviously super fucking strong in this game, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the shotguns I've been getting shredded by.
And I did snipe one game, and it felt really good. And I like just the way the sway and the scopes and the feeling of the gun. So I'm excited. Again, like my whole takeaway from this, I can understand people that don't necessarily like the multiplayer, but I'm fucking torqued for new Warzone being built off of this like world.
Yeah, I got to get a little more used to it before I share that enthusiasm, but it's not a bad start.
And then I think you're the one who discovered it. I kind of had known about it, but a huge feature, huge win here is when you're building those loadouts, tweaking is you can instantly hop into that firing range. And I think you enjoyed that at least. Do you want to share about that?
Yeah, it's kind of cool actually. So while you're setting up your weapons, you can even do this like in the loading screens and stuff too, which is great. Or like while you're, I think you can do it like in game when you're changing your loadout on the pause menu. But essentially you can pull up like a shooting range visualization and you can practice your weapon, and they have targets and dummies so you can like shoot like short range, mid range, and long range. I found it incredibly helpful to see like what the difference were. Instead of like trying something and seeing how it would work in game, you could just try it right then. I think it was a genius little taste of something new.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought that was going to be like a thing you had to hop into separate. Like you couldn't be playing with buddies. You'd be like, hey, I'm going to be in the firing range for, 10 minutes fucking with my builds. No, I think it's incredible that you can just kind of instantaneously hop in there. I think it's most helpful, at least for me, is comparing optics. Like it's that's just an instant thing. You can see like, do I like this sight or versus that sight? And I sure when you can play with reticles too, you can really fine tune that. But to me, it's just amazing. Like that functionality works great out of the bat, but they couldn't do fucking matchmaking. That seems so much more like computing intensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a huge addition. I guess final, in terms of like talking about first impressions here are the maps. What are your thoughts on the maps?
Yeah, they are good. I don't really have a lot of experience with other multiplayer maps, so it's hard for me to be like, it was great. You know what I mean? Like I had fun playing them. There wasn't anything where I was like, oh, I fucking hate this map, or I don't know. So I guess this is my first foray into like these style of maps. So I don't know. I thought they were okay. What about you?
Well, you didn't play. Two questions. Did you play the border crossing map?
The border crossing.
Where it's the Sicario.
Oh yeah. I did. Yeah, with the traffic. Yeah.
What did you think of that?
It was a little simple, and it was fucking really pissing me off because I kept getting killed so fast. But it didn't upset me too bad. Why?
I hate that map, and I refuse to play it.
Wow, really? It's like that?
I see it come in, I immediately quit out, and I will not play it. I just don't. I mean, I'm trying to level different guns. If I was sniping or doing other shit, I might be into it, but I fucking hate it. I guess I'll give him it. I've heard on the more objective-based games, it's more fun. I could see that perhaps, but fuck that map. Otherwise, I like the maps. I think the F1 Raceway map's pretty dope. There's some other cool ones. The ones from the beta, I know better now. So I would say the maps are solid, but I think I really want to try this Invasion or a Ground War or one of the other modes, which is essentially, I think, takes place on the new Warzone map or sections of it. It's more of a feel of Warzone. It's the more large scale game. Like you can do vehicles. I would encourage you to check that out if this whole, what are you doing? Deathmatch and all that's a little too sweaty.
Yeah.
Especially if you're sniping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're all in the rotation, right? Like I don't get a choice.
Yeah, you do. Well, so that one's not in there. That's the other thing, I guess, talking about this UI, is there's not a simple way you only want to play deathmatch. There's not like a team deathmatch card you select. You actually have to go into quick play and edit which playlists it's shuffling up. I don't think these ground wars are in that. You have to scroll down from there and you'll see a bunch of standalone modes. That's one of them. But yeah, if you're trying to snipe, that has the bots in it. I know you like killing bots. It boosts your confidence. Like,
wow.
Maybe that's what you need.
Yeah, I do actually enjoy that. So yeah, okay. I'll check it out.
All right. And then finally, just to talk about my not recommendation, but I haven't played a standalone Call of Duty game, I think, since Black Ops 2, maybe 3. But I've really gotten back to my roots, which I realized I'm a ratty ass piece of shit in this game. But this game really, Modern Warfare 2, necessitates it. So what I do, I run a restock. I run the extra tactical. I find a room. I throw down a fucking proxy mine. When I have the restock going, you damn sure I bust out 2. And then I just, like I've talked about, I hold the high value areas. I wait till a motherfucker gets me out of that room. And then I spend my life going back, taking the room back from them and just doing that. And I don't know how many times these proxy mines will give you an easy kill, especially after you're even dead if you sit tight for a second or two. So I know you started proxy mines and you talked about movement is really penalized in this game. I agree with that, but that's Tron's recommendation out there. I don't know how y'all feel about that.
Yeah, I've been doing that too. I mean, proxies just seem to work. You can throw them down. You're not looking for them necessarily. If you put them in the right areas, guys are going to hit them. They're going to get extra kills. A couple extra kills a game. If you're on top of it, especially if you're sniping, you want to run the restock too.
Ooh.
And then you could just basically lay them down everywhere, create a little barrier.
So, probably not contributing the best feelings to people. People probably fucking hate me in this game. But that you can have success. Tron's here to say.
Yeah, I agree. I'm into it. I'd recommend it as well.
All right. Well, I think that's really it. It sounds like I'm pretty sold, pretty positive. Jury's still out with Cowboy. He needs to dive in. The good news is we have 2 weeks at this point, maybe a little more, until Warzone 2 comes out, which it's so wild to me that we're going to be playing a brand new Warzone in only around 2 weeks' time. Like I still haven't grasped it.
That is happening in 2 weeks? Less than 2 weeks now?
November 16th, this podcast is going to be going live on Halloween Day, okay. October 31st. So yeah, 16 days to go or whatever, however you want to count it.
Well, it's exciting. It's going to happen, baby. We're
So
getting there.
I think, yeah, this is like riding a bike. You know, the more you get in there, the more you fall down, the more you're going to get better. And, you know, these games, you get your ass kicked. Still, you got to focus on leveling up those guns. Maybe you find a different mode you like. I've heard that other mode is really good for leveling up, too. You gain a lot of XP. Maybe a more less frustrating experience. You can drive around in a tank, a car, fucking heli. Check that out. We're curious to hear your all feedback. Been loving it on, you know, on the Discord. It seems like a lot of positive. We're getting a lot of good tips too. So communicate with us. We're excited for where we're headed. Again, we're past 100 episodes. We're past the past of Warzone and old Modern Warfare. We're all with the fucking new.
Yeah, baby. Let's get it. We're almost there.
So that is going to do it for us this week on the Warzone Amateur Hour podcast. It's done with our first impressions. It's time for some second impressions. For those of you out there that have the game, it's time to grind.
Yeah, grind and dine.
And we this week will work on getting our final Warzone 1 victory together. And we will talk to you all next week. And as always, until then,
Good luck in the gulag.